Hi, I'm Brian Crombie, and we're going to be talking on The Brian Crombie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on The Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. So, coming up in June, we have a provincial election. And so what I want to do is I want to interview a couple of different candidates that I think you should hear from to get a sense of what's going on provincially with the different parties, the different candidates. And someone who I admire and I've watched politically for quite a while is Sheref Sabawy, who is the Conservative member of provincial parliament in Mississauga, Erin Mills. He was elected for the first time 4 years ago, and he's standing again for the Conservative Party. June 2nd, I believe, is the date of the provincial election. And thank you for coming. Welcome to the show. How are you, Sheref?
I'm good. How are you, Brian?
Excellent.
I'm always happy to come.
So let me ask, how do you think Doug Ford and your government, the Conservative government, has been doing? What's sort of your read of things right now?
Well, I think in multiple stops within that COVID journey, as I always name it, we as a government and individuals, we proved many times that we put the Ontario health and Ontario well-being of the Ontarians on top of everything, even political. Like I can give you just a quick example. The last lockdown, the medical table, the science table, and the medical chief officers advised that we close, and we know that this is politically not good in this time. We are very close to election, but the whole team, including Doug Ford, said like it's not a matter of election or any political thing now. It's the safety of the people, the well-being of the Ontarians, and we know that there could be a consequences for that. Even liberals, like some of my liberal old friends, called and said like you guys did the right thing, but man, Doug Ford have really strong guts to do that in this time.
Well, I've been surprised, honestly, with Premier Ford. He won in what was it, 2018?
Yes.
In June of 2018, and the whole story of how he became leader and then premier is an interesting story because he became leader just before the provincial election when Patrick Brown was forced to resign, but he then went bad in the political polls, went down in the political polls, and in 2019. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau actually ran against Doug Ford in Ontario and won. And Doug Ford went from like the high 40s down to the low 20s in popular opinion. But now, after what people perceive to be a reasonable handling of the public health crisis, he went from the low 20s into the 30s, and now I think is actually above 40% in the popular vote, in the public opinion. What do you think has caused that dramatic slide and then that increase? Is it because he took advice from the Science Council and from the Medical Council?
No, like they're like I think the media and a lot of the media hubs have been attacking Doug Ford and saying that like he has no records to being a leader, and like I think they even put some shadows around like Rob Ford and like how the handles of different things. But Doug Ford proved to be a leader. Like as soon as like the rubber hit the ground, things start moving, and especially when we seen the COVID coming. And I think the leadership Ontario took in handling the COVID is, I think, the best in Canada and maybe in other jurisdictions from the world as well.
Well, it's interesting because I don't agree with his policies, but Legault is the premier that has the highest opinion in popular opinion polling right now of any premier in Canada. And he's been at times even stricter than Ford. I think just recently has changed his mind on taxing people that don't get the vaccine more. But, to come out for a while actually proposing to tax people that were not vaccinated, that was a pretty controversial move. They've had curfews there. They've had more stringent lockdowns than we have. And he's a conservative, right-wing politician.
Yes, but again, there's two aspects of lockdown and two aspects of taking decisions. It's a decision itself, how hard it is, studying the impact, understanding the situation, and as well the timing. Timing is everything. Like 2 weeks earlier, 2 weeks after, make a big difference.
Yeah, no, I do think that politically, it was smart to wait until after the Christmas time period to initiate the lockdown. I think it would have had more of a beneficial public health impact if he had done it before Christmas. But people were going to go see their families anyway during Christmas. That was just going to happen. So I think that the timing was right. And, it was been pretty cold January. So being locked down during January when it was so cold wasn't so terrible. We could all stay home and watch TV a little bit more than normal.
I know. I always remember the first time we sat and decided to lock down Ontario or take a decision to lock down. It was a very controversial discussion. And I appreciate that Premier Doug said, I would like to hear everyone. So we sit, I think, 7 hours, I believe, to hear everyone discuss every aspect of the lockdown. And I still remember, myself, when I said, we don't know yet what we are facing. We don't know how big or small or anything about this COVID. We don't have enough information. It could be big crisis. And I think the history will remember this government as one of the governments, like the Second World War government. It's going to be the COVID government.
Really?
So
Let me ask you, though, about this truck convoy this past weekend up in Ottawa. In Alberta, it is Premier Kenney that has taken the very hard line against the blockade at the border. Premier Ford hasn't said a thing in regards to the protests and the blockade in downtown Ottawa. He's left it up completely to the local mayor and the local police chief. Isn't there a role that the Premier should have been playing in what was going on in Ottawa?
It depends on what angle you look into it. If you are looking into it from how can we get some negotiation or agreement with those guys, their requests are basically all federal. We can't come close to that negotiation at any aspect of it. Putting opinion about it, Doug Ford did already spoke about everybody have the right to protest, but they have to follow the rules and they have to refrain from any anti-Semitic, hate speech and all kind of stuff like that.
But they're not following the rules. They're blocking, several roads in downtown Ottawa with 18-wheelers and SUVs and trucks and whatnot, and have been doing it for several days. In any other kind of protest, if people were doing that, they would have been cordoned off and marched off. And I think the difference here is they've got the 18-wheelers, and it's almost like, next time people are going to bring 18-wheelers to protest. That's the lesson.
No, I don't think that's the reason. I think the reason is the situation after COVID, everybody is in a very age mood kind of thing. So I think they are trying to handle the situation very delicately because of the nature of the pressures and anxiety because of the COVID and because of all the controversy. And as you were discussing in another episode, I think I saw, and you were talking about the partisan and that the parties are not really representing what they were representing before. And I think in the COVID situation now, it's not really partisan. It's actually judgment on the situation. I don't think the partisan play come into anything close to COVID, like this era of the COVID. The decisions governments took either federally or provincially, they took their decisions not based on any ideological partisan thing. It's about how to secure, how to save the people, how to handle situations, and how to keep sustaining the business.
So you know what, Sheref, I disagree with you. I think that Doug Ford and your government have done a good job of listening to science and medical.
Yes.
However, I do think it's been very partisan. I think that the first premier, the premier in Saskatchewan, to get rid of any kind of passports or mandates or any kind of protections, public health measures, is a very conservative, very right-wing premier. The second, the first guy to open up last July, and stupidly so because it ended up causing massive increases, was Premier Kenney in Alberta. So I do think, and I think that Premier Legault and Premier Ford have been surprises to, I think, most people in regards to how much they've listened to science and medical. But that group, the Premier of Saskatchewan, the Premier of Alberta, unquestionably, I think, have been partisan and more like Texas and Florida in their approaches to public health. And I think Pierre Poilievre and some of the potential leadership candidates in the Conservative Party federally that have gone to the convoy and supported it and been so vocal in their attitudes toward public health measures, to vaccines, to distancing, to the mandate across the border, and for sure Maxime Bernier, who went from nowhere to 8% in the polls on an anti-vax strategy. So
Yes, but
I think it's been very partisan.
No, but
thankfully not with Premier Ford in Ontario.
Yes, but let me tell you something. You brought a very good point. Like, you measure that the popularity gone from 0 to 8%. The governments are acting on their own beliefs about how to handle the situation, not really the partisan part, but the people are very polarized because there's a controversy issues when the crisis happen. So people goes to the far left and far right.
You see, I don't think people are polarized. I think that 80% of Canadians are vaccinated. Maybe it's 84 for the first and 76 for the second and 60 something for the third. But call it 80% of people. So the vast majority of Canadians over the age of whatever are vaccinated. The problem is that there's 10% that aren't. Maybe it's 20%. And 10% of Canada is 3 million people. 15% is 4.5 million people, 5 million people, right? So there's a significant number of people. Even though we're a very small minority, it's still a significant number of people. And so I don't think that the vast majority of Canadians are doing the right thing for public health, are doing the right things for their families, are doing the right things for the communities. But there is a small minority that are listening to different voices.
Conspiracy theories.
Different?
Conspiracy theories.
Yeah. No question. Anyway, we're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Sheref Sabawy, the MPP in Mississauga Erin Mills, the Conservative MPP, running again June 2nd in Erin Mills. Stay with us, everybody. Hi, I'm Brian Crombie, and we're going to be talking on The Brian Crombie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on The Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. We're chatting tonight with Sheref Sabawy, who is the Conservative MPP, Member of Provincial Parliament for Mississauga Erin Mills. He's running again in the provincial election that's coming up this June 2nd. Sheref, let's go to local issues for a minute, if we could,
Sure.
and the politics of the situation. To win government, you got to win the 905. And in the last election, you won, the Conservatives won every seat in Mississauga.
Yes.
And I think every seat in Brampton, but what, one or two?
One.
But one that went to the NDP, Jagmeet Singh's brother. And you won Caledon.
Actually, two, because I think there's Sarah Singh as well in Brampton.
Okay.
Yeah, two.
So you won every seat in Peel, but two. You did win Halton, but federally, Halton went Liberal. In York, it's a smattering. I think you won most of the seats in York, and you won most of the seats in Durham.
Yes.
So most of the 905 is Tory blue. Toronto is primarily NDP, which was a switch because before it was primarily Liberal, and federally it primarily went Liberal. Based on the polls, right now the Liberals are ahead of the NDP, which is surprising because Stephen Del Duca, the leader of the Liberal Party, isn't well known, and Andrew Horwath, the leader of the official opposition, has had an opportunity to make a lot of comments, but she's down in the 20s, and Stephen Del Duca and the Liberals are in the 30s, and you're in the low 40s, or high 30s, low 40s, I think is the numbers that I've seen most recently. So I think it's going to come down to Mississauga.
Yes.
And York and Durham maybe, but the way that Mississauga goes, I think the others will go. The Conservatives won every seat in Mississauga in the last election.
Yes.
Federally, every seat went Liberal.
Yes.
What do you think is going to happen? Last year, every seat went Liberal. Can you hold every seat in Mississauga?
I think we will, in my opinion. Mississauga have been focus of our efforts. The six of us have been working very hard during the COVID and before and after, even during nowadays. We have been trying to get Mississauga all the wish list. So keeping the LRT alive, pushing hard for the new hospital, the biggest hospital in the Canadian history, the biggest hospital in Canada will be in the Trillium location. The new project in the Queensway Hospital, all the support and new technology improvements we give to Credit Valley Hospital. The number we get for long-term care beds in Mississauga, I don't think it ever happened in the Canadian history. Mm-hmm. Like in 6 years of Liberal government with Breyer, they got 611 long-term care beds for the whole Ontario. We got in the past 3.5 years, almost like the 4 years coming, we already got 1,084 beds for Mississauga only. And there's announcement coming for another long-term care in Mississauga.
So you think you've been winning for Mississauga?
I think that with the amount of work done during COVID and also the infrastructure and support we did for Mississauga, I think the people will.
So a lot of people think that you needed to have, or you need to have, a senior cabinet minister from the area to be successful. And the Liberals had the Minister of Finance from Mississauga for a while. They had the Minister of Labour as well, provincially. And then federally, they had the Minister of Transportation and Minister of Science.
And they have the seniors. Rebecca de Merlo was the seniors minister.
So do you think that you've got enough cabinet representation?
Well, we have 2 associate ministers and we have 4 PAs. So I think the 6 of us are on almost either in the cabinet level or just like slightly on the same kind of level. So I don't think that this is eliminating us from being able to achieve to Mississauga what we needed to do. And we actually did. Like even in my riding, specifically, we have the South Common Community Center, which have been there for 30-some years, almost like 40 years, and it's falling apart. We got $45 million to rebuild it from scratch. It's going to be a new community center, up to date. We got as I mentioned, the hospital. We got the extension of the 401 between Mississauga and widening from Mississauga to Milton. All this junction is already widened. There's a lot of discussions going on in the Milton line now with CN Rail. So there is many things we are doing for Mississauga, which I think, in my opinion, going to help Mississauga to grow bigger and stronger.
You know, the amount of money that your government has committed to transit in Toronto is astounding.
Yes.
And I think, given that you don't have any seats, or I think 2 seats, it's excellent that you're actually doing that. And the Ontario line is going to be one of the biggest financial commitments to infrastructure in history. But I'm surprised that you actually haven't done more on the Milton line and/or all-day 2-way frequent GO train service, electrification, etc. in the areas in the 905 where you're vote rich and you want to persuade people. And the big transportation announcement you've made is this Highway 413 that obviously your premier thinks is a wedge issue that the suburban voters in the 905 will support. even though, frankly, a lot of the local councils have come out against. What's your opinion of 413?
I think 413 is going to move, like if you look into the growth in development, it goes from the highway and up. Now, if you build another highway, it's going to go from the highway and up. We need to expand the housing because we have a housing crisis. The prices of the housing, when I hear the Liberal NNB talking about affordable housing is not the solution for our housing crisis, housing crisis, because affordable housing is for people who need support, who are not low-income families. But we are talking about very good income families can't buy houses now.
I have to agree with you completely. I think that this is a completely, a wonderful, winnable issue for you. That the vast majority of people don't want to live in affordable housing. We need affordable housing for those that can't afford regular housing. But we
need houses which is affordable.
Right. The vast majority of people want to live in
of course,
in a condo that's bigger than 500 square feet,
yes.
And or a single family home.
Yeah.
And so being the party in favor of home construction and home ownership, I think is a win for you. Something
Absolutely.
like 70% of Canadians own their home. It's higher in Canada than it is in the United States. Canadians love home ownership. There's no question about it. And right now, it is unaffordable for the vast majority of people. But they don't want social housing. They just want a house.
Of course.
So you think the highway could produce that? 'Cause it's going to open up more land.
It's going to open more land. It's going to make it faster to reach out where you want to go. If you imagine that you're living up north and you need to go down, drive 30, 40 minutes to reach 401 or 407 even to go anywhere, that's another 30 minutes on top of the trip.
Yeah.
But if there is a highway there, we're 5 minutes from
I got to tell you, though, there was a proposal at one point in time to take the 413 to join the 401 at Guelph or around Guelph. Mm-hmm. And now, for, I presume, money reasons, you're bringing it down to meet the 401 at the interchange of the 407 and the 401 at the Milton-Mississauga border. That's going to make the 401 west of Mississauga through Milton a disaster. If you've got the 407, the 413, and the 401, and the 407 from the bottom and the 403 all coming together and feeding into the 401 going west to Milton, it's going to be a disaster. I don't know why you don't take, if you're going to build the 413, I think if you're going to build the 413, it should be connected to the Bradford bypass, and then it should frankly go all the way around Toronto on the east, and it should continue and join the 401, near Guelph.
Yeah, but we didn't say that it will never happen because we're still in the very primarily planning phase of the project and budgeting some money for it. And when the shovel hit the ground, there will be a lot of opportunities with different budgets coming in the next years to add to it. I don't see anything wrong with that.
So you've got a parliamentary assistant position.
Yes.
Tell me what it is.
It's the Heritage, Sports, Tourism, and Culture Industries.
You enjoying it?
Very enjoying it.
Are you responsible for Ontario Place?
No, the project is part of the ministry, but I'm not myself plugged into this.
What do you think about the plan for Ontario Place?
I think the Ontario Place, as Premier Doug said, it's a jewel, but it's not properly fitted into the crown. So I think we need to look into more innovation solutions, how the government to make money of that, how to make services of that, how to make it fun for the families.
So this past weekend, Canada won against the United States in soccer.
Absolutely. I was watching, I was jumping up and down. I was two days before that, we had Egypt and Côte d'Ivoire soccer. And then after Canada big win, Egypt won on Morocco, and then Salvador, then Morocco, then Canada and US. So it's a whole 10 days of victories and communities.
And so Canada might actually make it into the World Cup.
They will. I think
good.
they will. They have only one match. I think Salvador left.
I was shocked that a politician that you and I know well, Carolyn Parrish, a local councillor in Mississauga, tweeted, "Now it's time for Mississauga to get a big professional soccer stadium." What do you think of that?
I think the idea is great, but I don't know. I don't know about the land. Like we don't have enough.
Would your government fund it?
We can talk about that, but like it's a good attraction, and I think if the city, again, like we have to understand that the municipality have to come up with ideas, put a proposal, then the MPPs start working on it and push it, but we can't initiate it.
Sheref, you and I have known each other in politics for a long time. We've known each other federally
Yes.
and provincially and municipally. We've known each other in a couple of different political areas. What's been your biggest satisfaction in the last couple of years, and what's been your biggest disappointment in the last couple of years?
Okay. Biggest satisfactions. I think the Egyptian Heritage Month was a good success because that was a dream. I've grown in Mississauga. I came to Mississauga 26 years ago, and I have been attending all the Croatian, Ukrainian, Polish, Indian, Pakistani, South Asian, Chinese, and I dreamed to be the owner of that, and I had the honor to succeed in that. That's one thing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And the second thing is actually, since I came to Canada, the Canadian experience was a very, very big obstacle for all the immigrants came to Canada since I came. And it stayed for that. And I've been working very, very diligently to try to break that taboo. And until Premier believed on it, and Minister Monty McNaughton took a step to create Bill 29, which basically removed the Canadian experience as a qualifier in licensing. If you have a license and you have a number of experiences, years of experience, they should count.
Okay.
And that will benefit, I think, 23 vertical professionals. We're still not close to the medical one, the medical professions. And I have one of the best moments of my life, not my 4 years. When I was debating that and MP from the Liberal standing up and said, the bill is good, but I don't see why you don't do something for the medical staff. And that was it. That was my moment of life. Because I said, guys,
It's almost perfect.
That's mine. Please leave it to me. And I said, I remember about 9 years ago, I came and knocked your door, asking you for just my wife, who's a doctor, to come from Manitoba to Ontario. A doctor in Manitoba to come as a doctor in Ontario. And you couldn't do anything. And your colleague, who was the Minister of Health there at the time, couldn't do anything. And you guys didn't do anything to help
And now he's saying that's the one thing.
hundreds of immigrants who are qualified, maybe overqualified, and they can't get a
Okay,
job.
so
in there.
what's the biggest disappointment in 4 years?
Biggest disappointment. I think I hoped to do. I have some list to do things, but the COVID actually ate 2 years of our 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's almost like solely COVID. And of course, when we first talked to the people and we promised them it's going to be like 3 months of lockdown and things got in longer. Not really that we want that. Any government wouldn't love anything about lockdown, closing business, paying people, stop revenues, stop tax collection. It's revenues.
Yeah. Well, I found it interesting today that Premier Legault announced a major investment in healthcare and in ICU capacity, such that if we have problems in the future, he's hoping that we don't have a lockdown. And I think that is going to be the one thing, is that we're going to have to take a look, not just at public health measures that reduce the demand for ICU, but can we increase ICU capacity? Anyway, Sheref Sabawy, MPP for Mississauga Erin Mills, good luck in June. And thank you so much for coming in tonight and sharing the last 4 years with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's always a pleasure to meet you and to discuss like this kind of informative sessions. Actually, it's good for the viewers to understand that different attributes, it doesn't matter. These people, every politician here is to do what they believe is good for the people of Ontario. no matter what, Liberal, NDP, Conservatives you have, maybe have different point of views, but end of the day, we are trying very hard, working diligently 24/7 to help the people and make sure that we do good for them.
Well, thank you so much for your service to the people and for coming in. I'm going to invite a couple of different candidates from different parties, both incumbents as well as challengers into the show. And you know, they're worth listening to. And they put aside a lot of personal time. The job of a politician is not 9 to 5. It's a long, involved job. They knock on a lot of doors. They go to a lot of community events. They listen to a lot of people. There's a lot of work. And Sheref, thank you for your contribution. Sheref and I, as I've said, have interacted in politics. We haven't always agreed on policies. We haven't always been on the same side. But I think we've always appreciated each other and respected each other, and I've always liked you as a friend, even if you've been a political foe at times. So thank you, Sheref, for everything you've done. That's our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us. Tune in again. We're on every Thursday on Canada One TV. Good night, everybody.
इस सर्दी के मौसम में तैयार रहें। ब्रैम्पटन में बर्फबारी के वक्त आपको ये जानने की जरूरत है। बर्फानी तूफान के दौरान सड़क पर पार्किंग पर पाबंदी है। तमाम कारों को सड़क से हटा दें। साइडवॉक से तमाम